Hey family, before we get into today's story, I just want to pause and say, I hope you and your loved ones are doing okay. I hope your hearts are light, your homes are peaceful, and you've got something warm in your cup. Because this story, it's the kind that makes you stop, think, maybe even cry, and maybe look a little differently at the world around you. Let me hit you with this. What would you do if someone told you to go back to Africa while you were just trying to buy apples? That's not a joke. That's not a metaphor. That's exactly what happened one cold winter afternoon. And what started as an ordinary grocery run turned into a moment that made an entire store go silent. The sun was fading, casting golden beams through the windows of a quiet little neighborhood grocery store. Everything felt calm. Shoppers moved slowly. Carts squeaked across the tile floors. The speakers played some throwback R&B. There was even a kid in aisle 3 arguing with his mom about cereal. Regular day. Marcus, a black man in his early 30s, was standing by the apple stand. Blue hoodie, calm eyes, focused. Just doing what we all do, getting groceries and minding his business. At the same time, a woman approached from the opposite end. Older, white, dressed in beige from head to toe. Her name? Gladys. You know the type: hair pinned neat, lips pursed, the kind of woman who probably irons her napkins. She rolled her cart toward the same apples. They both reached for the same bag. A moment of overlap. One of those little awkward grocery dances. You've done it before. Oh, you go ahead. No, you first. Polite, normal. Except this time, it went very differently. Gladys looked at Marcus, really looked at him. Her eyes didn't just see him, they evaluated him. And then she opened her mouth and let it fly. You don't belong here, go back to Africa. The air in the store, gone, like someone had hit mute on reality. A man in the soup aisle froze with a can of chicken noodle halfway to his cart. An employee stopped mid-scan at the register. Even the toddler in the shopping cart fell silent, binky halfway out his mouth. Marcus didn't move. He just stood there, bag of apples in hand. His face didn't scream. It didn't crumble. It shifted from surprise to something steadier, a quiet strength. He looked Gladys right in the eyes. Did he yell? Number? Did he curse her out? Number? Did he throw the apples? Definitely not. What he said next: Ma'am, I'm not sure why you think I don't belong here, but perhaps you'd like to explain further? Oof. That wasn't just a response, that was a mirror. And suddenly everybody in the store was tuned in. A couple near the bread aisle whispered, Is he about to go off? A teenage boy stacking bananas whispered, Yo, this is wild. One woman clutched her pearls, literally, but Marcus, still calm, still holding the line. And Gladys, she smirked, tilted her head like he was a toddler speaking out of turn. Explain? Why bother? Places like this aren't meant for people like you. It's just that simple. That sentence, cut sharper than any knife in aisle 6. So there they stood, Marcus, calm but coiled. Gladys, staring down her nose like she was defending sacred grocery ground. The apples, still just sitting there, shiny and red, caught in the middle of something much bigger than fruit. Marcus took a breath, pressed his lips together, and instead of doing what some people expected, yelling, walking away, cursing, whatever, he did something else entirely. He placed the bag of apples back on the shelf. Deliberate, slow, like setting down something that had suddenly become way too heavy. His hands dropped to his sides. He exhaled, and then he turned to Gladys and said, Ma'am, I think we can take a closer look at that. But first, let me share a story with you. Boom. Right then, the energy in the store shifted. People who had been trying to look away started paying attention. Carts stopped rolling. Even the lady sampling cheese turned her head, holding her toothpick like it was a mic. Marcus stood tall, shoulders back, voice steady. and without ever raising his tone, he began. "You just told me I don't belong here," Marcus said, "so let me tell you where I come from. My great-grandfather was taken from his homeland, put on a ship, stripped of everything, his name, his language, his freedom, sold like an object. He was forced to work land he would never own, in fields under the same sun I stand under today." Now you could hear nothing but his voice. Even the freezer fans seemed to hum quieter. "My father," Marcus continued, "he fought in Vietnam, came back with medals and wounds, and when he came home, he still had to eat out back, use the side entrance, get served after the folks he fought for." Gladys blinked. Her grip on her cart tightened just a little, but she said nothing. Marcus paused, looked at her, really looked at her. "And me?" he said, voice softer now, but full of weight. "I'm a teacher. I stand in front of classrooms filled with black kids, white kids, brown kids, kids who don't even know what race means yet. And I teach them that our differences, they're not problems, they're power." Now even the most uninterested shopper had turned their cart to face the scene. You could feel it, not just tension, anticipation. Marcus let his words hang. Then, "So when you say I don't belong here, and my family has shed blood, sweat, and tears for this country, then let me ask you, who does belong here?" Silence, respectful, heavy, thick with something bigger than anger. And for the first time, Gladys didn't have a quick comeback. She didn't sneer, didn't roll her eyes. She just stared, not with hate, with something else. Maybe surprise, maybe shame. But just when it looked like she might fold, her chin lifted, and she snapped. "People like you always destroy everything we've built. I've seen it. My father lost everything in a riot, our store, our lives." Gasps echoed, a few murmurs. Someone whispered, "Now that's too far." But Marcus still didn't flinch. He tilted his head, let her words hang, then said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry your family suffered, but I didn't destroy anything. My family's been rebuilding for generations. Don't you think it's time we stop blaming the wrong people?" And at that moment, something changed, not just in Gladys, but in the room. For a second, maybe two, the store stood still. You could feel it in the walls, like the building itself was holding its breath. Gladys's face twitched. Her hand still gripped the cart, like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes, no longer hard, just confused, maybe even scared, not of Marcus, but of what his words had stirred up in her. But she wasn't ready to let go. She squared her shoulders again and fired back. "You think a few stories can change the truth? People like you always ruin what we build. I've seen it my entire life. I'm not changing my mind." Now that sliced the air like a blade. Some folks in the crowd flinched. A few stepped back. A woman near the cereal shelf muttered, "Wow, she really said that. Marcus." He didn't shout. He didn't blink. He stepped forward, not threatening, just present, and said calmly, "You think I destroy things? Or is it that the pain of your past is deciding how you see the present?" Boom! The air thickened again. Gladys blinked. Her knuckles whitened on the cart handle. Then her voice cracked just a little as she shouted, "My father lost everything in a riot. His store, his livelihood. We had to rebuild from nothing, all because of people like you." The words hit like thunder, but this time, the store didn't freeze. It listened, and for the first time, someone else stepped in, an older man near the dairy case, baseball cap, gray beard. He cleared his throat. "That's not fair," he said quietly but firmly. "We can't keep blaming the next person for what the last one did." The crowd turned, whispers buzzed. Then a young woman near the bread aisle added, "My son is in Mr. Marcus's class. He's the first teacher who ever made my boy feel seen." And just like that, something shifted. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't resolution, but it was a crack in the wall. Gladys looked around, eyes moving from face to face, not seeing enemies, seeing people who were no longer just watching, but waiting. Marcus stepped back, giving her space, his voice softer now, but still strong. "I'm not trying to attack you, ma'am. I just want you to see that your words don't just hurt me, they trap you. We all carry pain, but we don't have to pass it forward. We can choose better, together." And then, quiet. But not the kind of quiet that's heavy. This one felt like something new was blooming in the silence. Gladys stood still, hands gripping the cart, face red, not with rage this time, but something else. She looked at Marcus, then around the store, and finally down at the floor, and she whispered, "I don't know." Her voice trembled, and for the first time that day, it sounded human. Marcus nodded. "That's okay. Not knowing is the first step toward learning." The moment passed. The crowd began to move again. Slowly, no one clapped, no one shouted, but they looked at Marcus differently, and they looked at her differently too. Not with judgment, but with expectation. Like maybe, just maybe, they'd all seen something they weren't ready to forget. The store slowly came back to life. Carts began to roll again. Voices returned, quieter, more thoughtful. Even the kid who had been begging for cereal was now just watching his mom, silent. Marcus gave Gladys one last nod. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't a gotcha. It was respect. The kind you offer someone who's finally dropped their guard, even if just a little. She said nothing in return, but her silence, it wasn't cold anymore, it was processing. She turned slowly and began pushing her cart toward checkout. Not storming out, not angry, just thinking. And that was enough, for now. Marcus left a few minutes later. The sky had already turned dark. Streetlights painted long golden lines across the cold pavement. He walked slowly to his car, the bag of apples still in his hand. His heart, somehow both heavy and light. He opened his door, then glanced across the parking lot and froze. There she was, Gladys, sitting in her car, both hands on the steering wheel, eyes staring straight ahead. Her face still, but not peaceful, like someone wrestling 100 thoughts at once. Regret, defensiveness, maybe guilt, maybe grief. Marcus stood there for a second, thinking, should I go talk to her? Should I say something more? Then he shook his head. Some lessons take time to settle. He got in, closed the door, drove off into the night. That evening, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with his father, an older man, weathered hands, soft eyes. Marcus told him everything, the grocery store, the remark, the story, the silence, and Gladys. When he finished, his father leaned back and nodded slowly. You did right, son. People like her don't change overnight, but you planted a seed. And sometimes that's all we can do, plant the tree, hope it grows. Marcus smiled faintly. I just hope it actually grows. His father reached across the table, laid a hand on his son's shoulder. It will. Because people like you, like your grandfather, like me, we've always had to believe that hope is worth it. That same night, across town, Gladys sat alone in her small kitchen, dinner untouched, her eyes fixed on an old photo, her father strong, stern, calloused hands from years of work, eyes always sharp, voice always bitter. Keep your distance, he always said. Protect yourself. She had lived her whole life by those words, but tonight, she wasn't so sure. She stared at that photo, and for the first time in a long time, maybe ever, she let herself feel something different. Not fear, not control, just doubt. A single tear slid down her cheek, and she let it fall. So now that we've reached the end of this story, let's take a step back. Let's ask the question that everyone wants answered. Who was right and who was wrong? Was it Gladys? Yes. Her words were harsh, hateful, unprovoked. She judged a man by the color of his skin before she ever gave him a chance to be human. But here's the deeper truth. She wasn't born with that hate. She inherited it from pain, from stories passed down like old furniture, scratched, cracked, but still sitting in the middle of the room. She lived her whole life inside someone else's fear. That doesn't excuse it, but it helps us understand it. And Marcus? Marcus was more than just right. He was strong. He was graceful. He chose to teach instead of tear down. He stood there in public under pressure and didn't just defend himself. He elevated the conversation. He planted a seed. He made everyone in that store ask themselves, what am I carrying? What have I believed without ever questioning it? So, what's the lesson? That racism doesn't always wear a hood or shout from a podium. Sometimes it stands next to you in the produce aisle. It comes out casually in a voice that sounds like someone's grandmother, but it still cuts. It still wounds. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can fight fire with fire, or you can plant something better. Marcus planted truth, compassion, history, not to make Gladys feel small, but to help her see bigger. And the miracle? She did, not all the way, not right away. But she paused, and in today's world where people scream past each other, that pause is a miracle. Let's get real for a second. How many of us carry wounds we never asked for? How many of us repeat things we never chose because someone older told us that's just the way it is? And how many of us are brave enough to stop, ask questions, and grow? Now it's your turn. Have you ever been in a moment where someone said something that made your whole body go still? What did you do? What do you wish you'd said? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters here. If this story touched you, like it. Share it. Let it reach someone who needs to hear it. And if you believe in stories that heal, challenge, and uplift, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell so you never miss the moments that matter. This is Black Women, where our stories are power, where truth is our inheritance, where healing is always worth the effort. Thank you for listening. Let's keep planting seeds together.